Welcome to another Tech Help video brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I'm your instructor, Richard Rost. It's about that time again to reach into my grab bag of questions. It's time. I can't believe we've done 18 of these already. It's time for another quick queries. Quick queries are basically questions that I get asked either in email or in my forums or on YouTube or wherever that, they're good questions, but they don't necessarily merit a whole video on themselves. So let's dig into the mailbag. Robert from Dayton, Nevada, a silver member, says, I have an issue and I cut and paste something into a form. It always pops up in the left corner. How can I paste it where my cursor is? Well, it's a unique way that Access handles copy or cut and paste. If you got a form, let's say your customer form here. Now, if I go in here and I take the country field and I copy and paste without doing anything else, it will paste it right below where you're at. See? Paste, paste, paste. Okay? But if you click off of that, if nothing is selected, it pastes into the upper left-hand corner. And that's how Access works. So if you copy something from one form, right, and you go to a different form, let's say we open up this form, and I paste in that object, it's just going to go in the left corner. That's just how it works. And don't forget you got a label over here too, if you got a text box with an attached label to it. All right, is there any way to change that? Nope, not that I know of. So, yeah. Here's one from the forums. Kyle says that he's got a text box where the text is getting cut off like that. Now, there are margin settings, right? You can set your margins. You'll find them in the property sheets, right? There's margins and there's padding. You can change those things under the format tab. This one turned out to be the new Aptos font. And Kevin figured this one out. Kevin's good like that. He figures a lot of stuff out. And Thomas chimed in with some help too. But yeah, that Aptos font, I've noticed if you've got older forms especially, and you try applying the Aptos font, or you create new forms and stuff, and it gets that as a new default setting. That's the new default for Office now. It will cut stuff off. I'm a big fan of Tahoma. That's the older default font. So if your margins and your padding don't fix it, check your font. Okay. Next up, Amanda, a gold member, asks if there's a way to change the vertical alignment of the text in a command button. And of course, you can't, but Kevin comes in. See, I got a lot of great Kevins on my website. Kevin Yip comes in with, you can add a line break by pressing Control-Enter. And of course, I didn't think of that. But if you hit Control-Enter and then type it in, it'll look like it's aligned to the bottom. Here's the middle. And then do that, and then hit Control-Enter after it. Maybe put a space in there. And then you can make it look like it's vertically aligned on top. So that's pretty cool. And of course, Juan reminded everybody that you can also make transparent buttons, so you can basically create whatever kind of button looking like thing you want. Here's the video for that. I designed a whole form, and you can just put what look like buttons on here and then put transparent buttons over the top of those. And so you can make your buttons look neat. And of course, you can also put pictures on buttons themselves. There's lots of things you can do. I cover this in the beginner classes. Peter, a silver member, is talking about putting a button on a report that you can use to then print it. You can do this, but only in report view, not in print preview. It will only display in report view. Let me show you real quick. So if you've got a form with a report on it, like my invoice here. Okay, this is print preview. No matter what you do, all right, if you put a button anywhere on here, it will not show up in print preview. So if I go report design, a lot of times you can use this to actually print the report. All right, so here's a button. Doesn't matter what's in it. I just drop a button there, right? Now, it's got properties down here that say display when. There's always print only. Slide this down here so you can see it. There's always, come here, print only and screen only. All right, but again, it will not show it no matter what the setting is in print preview. Okay, so if I go to screen only, that means you don't want to see it when you print the thing, right? All right, if you open this up now, in print preview, you will not see it. If you open it up in report view, you will see it, and you can actually click on it and do stuff. So you can open this up. The report view is kind of like an almost good enough, pretty much kind of what you're going to see when you do print it or make a PDF. So you can open this up first and then put a button right here if you want to. I never do this myself, but it's an option. It's always, one more thing that you can do with Access. I like to just have a button here that says show print preview. And then once the print preview is open, right, just teach your people, okay, hit the print button. up here on the quick launch toolbar. Or make 2 buttons on your form, one for a preview and one to actually print it. You can, set what printer it goes to and all that stuff. Okay? Okay, here's one from the visitor forum. Visitor forum is where non-members can post. If you're not a student of mine, if you're just, like a YouTube viewer or whatever, you can still come to my website and post in the visitor forum. Anyone can post here. Now, his question isn't really, it doesn't matter what the function is that he's working with. He's got an undefined function, my network days. And he's using my network days function where you can take 2 dates and figure out how many work days there are between them. Right? You can give it, like a Monday and a Monday 2 weeks later. It'll tell you there are 10 days between them. It'll exclude holidays, all that stuff. But anyways, the function itself is irrelevant. But he's getting this undefined function in expression. Okay? And it turned out, if you go through that, we go through some troubleshooting with him, it turns out that he was naming the function the same as the module. So let me give you an example of what I mean. Let's say you want to create create a new one here. Let's create a module. Okay, so where you can put your code that can be used in any form or report. So let's make a public sub, and I'll call it hi there. And all this guy does is message box hi there. That's it. Okay, now I'm going to save this module as hi there. Okay? Now, if I come to any other form or whatever, and I come into a button, and I just say in here, hi there, save it. All right, if you come out here and try to run it, bam, expected variable or procedure, not module. What does that mean? And you'll also get that if you do a debug compile too, which you should always do a debug compile whenever you finish a bunch of code. And the problem is that hi there is the name of the module, and so that's what Access sees. Now, the easy solution to this is just to rename this guy. Right-click, rename, all this. I always end my modules in mod, and that will get rid of the ambiguity. See, now it works. Okay, so if you're getting weird errors like that, I used to do this all the time when I was first starting out. I'd name, I'd want to make a function or a sub, and I'd put it in a module that was named the same thing, and I'd be like, ah! And it took me doing it like 4 or 5 times before I realized, hey, you can't do that. So that's what these quick queries are for, to teach you stuff like that. All right, let's head over to YouTube for a couple. Quandil Rose asks, how do you select multiple values in a combo box? Well, the short answer is you can't. Combo box is you pick one item. That's it. There is no such thing as a multiple select combo box in Access. There is a multi-select list box. It is a lot more advanced, and it does involve some programming. I cover it in my Access Developer 15 class. There's a multi-select list box there where you can click multiple items. And then in this example, we hit a button, and it moves it between 2 different list boxes. And of course, you can use a record set and save that information to a table if you'd like. Now, Access does have something called a multi-valued field. And if you're a beginner and you want to be able to select multiple items, you can use this, but I don't recommend them. Because as you get into more advanced Access development, you'll find that these things are really more of a band-aid than anything else. They're designed, again, so beginners can do a multi-select like that. But accessing this information programmatically in the future, if you do become a little more advanced, start using some VBA, some advanced queries, these are very difficult to work with. So watch this video for more information on multi-valued fields, but that's the other alternative. Or you could just use a good old simple subform. Right, you can make a subform on your form, and in here, in the continuous form records, in here, you can put a combo box. So you can pick one for this record, pick one for that record, pick one for that record, and you get a nice little relationship going between those tables. I explain how to do that, kind of, in this video. Kent wants to know why it's a no-no to have spaces in your table names and field names. I go over this in great detail in my Access Beginner 1 class, and then a couple different times throughout my entire course. The biggest reason why is that you got to remember to put brackets around your fields all the time in SQL and VBA. And yes, there are some times where you need brackets anyways. But when you start writing VBA code and you have to put brackets around every field name, it becomes really annoying. So that's just my personal rule. I don't use spaces. I don't use anything other than letters and numbers. And you can't start a field name with a number. So that's just my personal rule. I also try to keep all my field and table names singular. Doesn't always work. Like notes is an exception because I've been using notes forever. But mostly because then when you get into coding, you don't have to stop and remember, okay, wait a minute, was it customer unit or customer units. Just keep it all singular and it works out, and there's no spaces, and everybody's happy. So it's a no-no for me. If you're going to follow my courses, that's how I do it. You can do it however you want. Just stay consistent. These are just little tips and things that I've just, come up with in my 30 years of doing it. That's all. Xavier says, when it comes to deleting objects, in my object dependencies video, I talk about how you can check to see if a query is being used anywhere, or if any other object is dependent on your object. Because if you have a query that you're not using and no one's using it, is it okay to delete it so you don't have tons and tons of all these queries and forms and stuff in your database that no one's using? And I said use the object dependencies to check and see if something else is using it. And Xavier's recommendation is rename the object with the current date, right? So you got customer queue, put the date after it. Doesn't matter if it follows my naming conventions because you're not going to use it. Now, if another object does use it, Access might rename things. Like if you have a query that a form is using, it'll rename it inside the form. So you still got to be careful about that, right? But if it's in your VBA code, it won't rename it. But that's just one thing you could try. Just rename it, and then if a year later, nothing is broken, you can then try deleting it. But still, you got to make sure. I would still use the object dependencies too, just to make sure that something isn't using it that did rename it inside itself. Right? The only thing that usually doesn't rename automatically is VBA code. So that was the issue. So there you go. Next up, just to mention about indexing. This user says that he ran through indexing his database, and it went from 15 to 30 seconds to 1 second to open a query, which is great. Or the multi-table search form that he's using. I just wanted to make a note there. Make sure you don't overuse indexing, because remember, when you index something, when you index a field, it will speed up searches and sorting for that field, but it will slow down updates. So if you got a table where you're constantly doing data entry and editing records and stuff like that, it might actually slow you down. But usually with most databases, the data entry is the limited part, and the searching for records and doing sorting and reports, that's the stuff you do a lot more. So it all depends on your needs. Watch my indexing video for more information on that. Shout out to Hartmut Schaefer. Thank you very much for the tip. Why do I always show the cheesy way to do something? I love cheese, especially provolone, Swiss, mozzarella, of course. I am half Italian, so mozzarella is my favorite. Whenever I try to make a tech help video, there's always two ways that I can think of to do something. Well, usually two ways I can think of to do something. My brain immediately goes to the VBA method, the developer method, because that's how I was that's how I was born and raised as a computer guy, right? I think in BASIC, because that's what I learned when I was 8 years old. But I always try to come up with a simple, non-programming way to do things for the beginners who aren't necessarily programmers, because you don't have to be a programmer to be an Access developer. So I try to show two ways if possible. If there's an easy, simple way, I'll show that. If you think that's the cheesy way, well, then don't watch the video. Sometimes it's actually harder for me to come up with the easy way to do something than it is to just write some code. Because for me, writing code is easy. Question from the same guy a couple days ago. Whenever I go through questions, I go through them backwards. Because whenever I look at the list of comments, that's how they are on YouTube. They're in reverse chronological order. So I've got some from like 8 months ago that I still haven't gotten to yet, but the most recent ones show up first. How do you make a select ship to address? Well, that depends. Do you want the best way or the cheesy way? Here's your answer. I cover it in Access Advanced Level 5. There it is, right there. Okay. And it's not the cheesy way. In all fairness, I do have this on my list for a future tech help video. I'm going to show you how to make shipping labels, and you'll have a ship to address and a bill to address for the invoices. So that is coming up as a free video. So just stay patient. This user says, I got a quick question before I make my first table. She's dealing with hospices and patients in hospices. Okay, and then you got medical rental equipment. And then you rent to different patients through the hospice. Okay, so the way I would set this up is you got a hospice table. All right, here's your hospice table. That's got a hospice ID, your primary key, and then, of course, the name, address, phone number, any other information about the hospice. Okay, then you got patients. Your patient ID is your primary key. That's your auto number. and it's going to have a hospice ID, a foreign key, which is a link back to this thing that tells you which hospice they're at. Then the patient key can also have any information about the patient, name, address, phone number, all that stuff. Now, if you're renting the equipment to the patient, you'll have your equipment table with an equipment ID, primary key, right? Name and description and all that stuff for just the equipment. Then you'll have a rental T that is the act of renting that piece of equipment to a patient. So you'd have the rental ID as the primary key. Okay, this is the basically consider it like the sale. Okay. Now you'll have a foreign key, which is the patient ID. Optionally, you can store the hospice ID if you want to. That's up to you. You don't have to, because you can find the patient hospice by two links, right? If you know the patient ID, you know what hospice they're at. And if you have the date that it was rented and they change hospices, you'll at least be able to figure out, where they were at that time if you keep a track of if they change, if a patient can change hospices. So that's why you might want to store the hospice as well. You don't have to. Okay, then the information about the rental, the date, the time, the cost, the due date, all that stuff. Okay, I got videos on a lot of this stuff. Check out my relationships video, my combo boxes video, and this kind of stuff is covered in my expert classes with relationships. And I also have a relationship seminar as well. I'll put links to all this stuff down below. But yes, it's good to lay this stuff out on paper, like I show you in my Access Beginner 1 class, right? Paper, index cards, even an Excel sheet, whatever. Just, get your tables and your relationships and stuff all mapped out first. It's easier to do it that way than it is to just start building tables and then figuring it out later. Okay? Try to make a roadmap first. And it's good that you know what all the information that you need to store up front. All right, this is one, I see this a lot, and I'm hiding the user's name because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but this happens a lot. People say, I followed your instructions step by step, right? I did everything you said, but something's not working. And he's got this here with a me.id. So no, you didn't do exactly what I said, because you will never see me use me.id. I will never use me to reference a field. You don't have to. All right, and I will only use me to reference properties of the form, okay? Or sometimes functions and stuff like that. Never a field. And if I was going to use it, I would use an exclamation point, not a period. In fact, you don't even really need me for a lot of the properties too. But I use it as a matter of just habit. So you didn't do exactly what I said. Little things like that are very important. All right? Things like, commas and stuff like that are also important. Right? There should be another comma in there. All right, that's the filter property. I believe in this video I show the where condition, which is the next one over. All right, so if you're going to say, hey, I followed your deeds, step by step, make sure you follow it step by step. Every little thing counts, okay? And I can tell when you're not following the instructions because I know how I do things. And I know when you found, code on ChatGPT and it's not working for you. Mm-hmm. Eric Cartman says, your VBA codes are simple, so neat, yet powerful. I have a similar function, but my codes are much more complicated. Yeah. 9 times out of 10, when I start writing code, it's not the perfect stuff you might see in the video the first time. A lot of the times, I just write it as I think it should be written, and then I'll go back over it once or twice, sometimes more than that, to make it more efficient, to make it cleaner, to make it readable. My initial code, like I said here, is just like Scotty's work on the Enterprise. The Energizer's bypass like a Christmas tree, so don't give me too many bumps, right? I still now go back through my personal business database that I use, that I've been building for 20 years. I'll find sections of code that I wrote 10 years ago, and I'll be like, no, we got to do that better. So code is constantly being refined, and the ability to write simple, neat, clean code, it just comes from practice. I've not always been great at it too. So just keep doing it. Keep practicing. You'll get there. Melvins said, do you have a school library management system? No, I get a lot of requests for this. I don't know why. Is there not a good school library management system database available out there already? A lot of the times when I was a consultant, I would build databases that there was a need for that one didn't exist. I'd be surprised that there's not something out there already. But I do surprisingly get a lot of requests for this. If you are looking for a school library management system database, post a comment down below, and if enough people speak up. Maybe I'll build one. Of course, I'll have to look up exactly what a school library management system database does. I assume it's just for like library books and stuff and who's got it checked out. I do have a rental database. I got a TechHelp video. It's about 3 years old. It covers managing rental inventory. Basically checking out books, right? Books. It's pretty much the same thing as renting like stuff. I think this is like for renting like, Blockbuster videos and stuff. But you could easily adapt this to what you're doing, right? Unless there's something I'm missing, let me know. I'll put a link to this guy down below. Check it out. Shadow Dragon, one of my most frequent commenters, figured out why an aggregate query is failing. There was long text field in there. Yeah, you can't have long text in an aggregate query. No long text, no images, OLEs, multi-valued fields, any kind of object type like that. Simple data types only. Okay? Okay. I figured this might help someone else. And it's a shout out to Shadow Dragon. Tom Servo says that he's used an Access ACCDE before, and he knows that it can be used on a computer that does not have Microsoft Access. You don't need to have the full version of Access, but you do have to at least have the runtime installed. You can't just give someone an ACCDE file and have their computer know what to do with it. Okay, are there differences? Yeah, there's a lot of differences. They won't have the ability to make any modifications. They lose some menu options. But as far as I'm concerned, I think that's a bonus. You don't want users getting in there and poking around design. And you can specify whatever options you want them to have in your own development stuff that you put together. So, yeah, it doesn't make sense to have, to buy 20 copies of Access for, 18 people that don't need to be able to modify the database. So, by all means, use the runtime. And I do recommend that everyone using the database has the same version of Access. As far as like, don't have some people with Access, 2013, some with 2016, some with 2021, some with the 365 subscription. Try to get everyone using the same thing. And if your users are all using the runtime, make sure it's the same version of the runtime. Okay. I got 3 in a row from Kent. Kent says good video, but he has a chuckle because the video is titled Criticisms of Access, but I spend most of my time defending those criticisms or even trying to turn the criticisms into benefits. Well, yeah, duh. I'm an Access guy. And a lot of the criticisms of Access are unfair, as I go through in the video. And the actual title of the video is Addressing the Common Criticisms. Yeah, I know the title slide doesn't say that, but the actual title of the video, as it is on YouTube. But yeah, of course I'm going to defend Access. Access is not perfect, don't get me wrong. It's got some drawbacks and some things that I want to see changed. But it's still, in my opinion, the best rapid development desktop database platform you're going to find. And I love it, and I'm going to defend it. So that's what I do. Another one from Kent. He says one of his biggest criticisms is that the database can get corrupted simply when you make design changes. Compact and repair doesn't always fix it. His trick is to create a new database and import all the objects. Yeah, sometimes you have to do that. Compact and repair won't fix everything. I've run into some problems myself, usually years ago. In recent years, I haven't had any problems. You can also try a decompile. Sometimes that fixes things that compact and repair doesn't fix. But yeah, once in a while, it might be necessary to just create a brand new Access blank database file, import all your objects, and that fixes the problem. A lot of the times, I find that people that have corrupted databases often usually are people who are either developing on a computer that's not theirs. In other words, you've got the master copy up on the server and you're trying to do development work across the network. Don't do that. Always copy the file down to your local PC first and make whatever changes you want there. It's just better. Or 2, you've got people that are still using the database while you're working on it. Especially people who don't have the database split and they're making changes to the database while other people are in it and it's a single database file. That will definitely lead to corruption. Another big corrupting thing is people that try to run the database off of a shared file, like a Google Drive or a Dropbox, one of those. Those are big no-nos too. So yeah, Access isn't perfect, but you got to learn its quirks. Last one from Kent. Another complaint is when the user uses the runtime version. If there's any error, the code simply crashes. Yeah, that is true. That is annoying. If you are using the runtime version of Access, which most large network setups are, if you get an error of any kind, a VB error, it will crash the database. So you have to make sure you have error handling everywhere. If there's a spot, a DLOOKUP of a null value, anything like that. Syntax errors, of course, make sure you compile your code. But if there's any kind of an error that you haven't handled, it will crash the database. So as soon as someone reports something like that, make sure you figure out what they were doing and find that spot and put at least an on-error resume next to there. But that's just good coding. Don't blame Access for that. You just got to make sure you handle your errors, right? You got to handle your business. Here's just a nice compliment from Clem that I'd like to share. Pause the video if you'd like to read the whole thing, but he compares me to Mr. Rogers, which I love Mr. Rogers. I grew up watching Mr. Rogers in Sesame Street. Mr. Rogers is cool, and thank you very much for the kind compliment. I appreciate that. All right, folks, that's where we're going to leave it today. Thanks for watching another Quick Queries video. I hope you learned something. Live long and prosper, my friends. I'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and post any comments you may have below. I do try to read and answer all of them as soon as I can. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, which is completely free. Click the bell icon and select all to receive notifications when new videos are posted. Want to learn more? Click the Show More link below the video to find additional resources and links. YouTube does a pretty good job of hiding it. It's right down there. See this part of the description here, right? The name, the video's up here. There's a little Show More down there, right down the bottom. It's kind of hard to find. But once you click on that, you'll see a list of other videos, additional information related to the current topic, free lessons, and lots more. And YouTube no longer sends out email notifications when new videos are posted like they used to do. But if you'd like to get an email every time I post a new video, click on the link to join my mailing list. And you can pick how frequently to get emails from me, either as they happen, daily, weekly, or monthly. Now, if you'd like to become a paid member of my channel and receive all kinds of awesome perks, click on the Join button. You'll see a list of all the different membership levels that are available, each with its own special perks, including my extended cut videos, access to my code vault, lots of VBA source code in there, template downloads, and lots more. I'll talk more about these perks at the end of the video. Even if you don't want to commit to becoming a paid member and you'd like to help support my work, please feel free to click on the tip jar link. Your patronage is greatly appreciated and will help keep these free videos coming. I got some puppies to feed. But don't worry, no matter what, these free tech help videos are going to keep coming. As long as you keep watching them, I'll keep making more, and they'll always be free. Now, if you really want to learn Access and you haven't tried my free Access Level 1 course, check it out now. It covers all the basics of Microsoft Access, including building forms, queries, reports, and more. It's over 4 hours long. You can find it on my website or on my YouTube channel. I'll put a link down below you can click on. And did I mention it's completely free? The whole thing, free, 4 hours. Go watch it. And okay, a lot of you have told me that you don't have time to sit through a 4-hour course. So I do now have a quicker Microsoft Access for Beginners video that covers all the basics faster in about 30 minutes. And no, I didn't just put the video on fast forward. But I'll put a link to this down below as well. Now, if you like level 1, level 2 is just $1. That's it, $1. And that's another whole 90-minute course. Level 2 is also free for paid members of any level, including supporters. So if you're a member, go watch level 2. It's free. Okay, want to get your question answered in a video just like this one? Visit my Tech Help page and send me your question there. Members get priority, of course. While I do try to read and respond to all of the comments posted below in the comments section, I only have time to go through them briefly a couple of times a month, and sometimes I get thousands of them. So send me your question here on the Tech Help page, and you'll have a better chance of getting it answered. And while you're on my website, be sure to stop by my Access forum. We've got lots of lively conversations about Microsoft Access and other topics. I have a fantastic group of moderators who help me answer questions. Shout out to Alex, Kevin, Scott, Adam, John, Dan, Juan, and everybody else who helps out on the site. I appreciate everything you do. I couldn't do it without you. Be sure to follow my blog, find me on Twitter, and of course on YouTube. Yeah, I'm on Facebook too, but I don't like Facebook. Don't get me started. Now, let's talk more about those member perks if you do decide to join as a paid member. There are different levels: silver, gold, platinum, and diamond. Silver members and up get access to all of my extended cut tech help videos, one free beginner class every month, and some other perks. Gold members get all the previous perks plus access to download the sample databases that I build in my tech help videos, plus access to my code vault where I keep tons of different functions that I use, the code that I build in most of the videos. You'll also get higher priority if you do submit any tech help questions. Now, answers are never guaranteed, but you do go higher in the list for me to read them. And if I like your question, you got a good chance of it being answered. You'll also get one free expert level class each month after you've finished the beginner series. Platinum members get all the previous perks plus even higher priority for tech help questions. You get access to all of my full beginner level courses for every subject. And I cover lots of different subjects like Word, Excel, VBA, ASP, lots of different stuff, not just Access. These are the full length courses found on my website. You get all the beginner ones. In addition, once you finish the expert classes, you get one free developer class per month. So lots of training. And finally, you can also become a Diamond sponsor. You'll have your name or your company name listed on a sponsors page that will be shown on each video as long as you're a sponsor. You'll get a shout out in the video and a link to your website or product in the text below the video and on my website. So that's it. Once again, my name is Richard Rost. Thank you for watching this video brought to you by accesslearningzone.com. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something today. Live long and prosper, my friends. I'll see you again soon.